Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and anything else that grabs our fancy. I am Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and Compass is a subscription-based website newsletter where we report on all these topics and more. And you can find us and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. Joined, as always, by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshark. Jesse, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been kind of a. I always feel like this week after Memorial Day is sort of weird, because it's not just that we've had the Memorial Day weekend, but also there's always a lot of stuff leading up to that. UT graduation, all the high school graduations. There's like this whole flurry of activity in early May, and then you hit Memorial Day and you come out of it, and it's just kind of like immediately this summer torpor sets in. So I'm kind of enjoying the summer torpor.
Oh, I always enjoy a good torpor, so summer or not.
That's right.
And we are joined by Lord Seth Barber, who reigns supreme in the opulent studios of Barbarian Productions. Lord Seth, what say you this week?
Well, I couldn't disagree more with Jesse. My summer has been the exact opposite. It has just been a new flurry of things to try to get into this torpor, as further mentioned. So I'm waiting on that experience, although the rain has stopped for now, although I think it's supposed to rain again this afternoon on Friday while we're taping, but the weird May monsoon may have finally passed, so we can get back into more normal summer vibes. So, but it's a gorgeous Friday morning out here in the wonderful West Knoxville, so can't complain on that front.
Well, one thing though, we really, really, really needed the rain. We were in the middle of a drought.
I'm not complaining about the rain at all. It's just it was a lot untraditionally timed.
Well, it was sort of the prolonged period of gray skies every day, which, as you say, we may be sort of moving out of now. But I mean, honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was fine.
I don't in this whole rain event that we've had. I don't think I had a day there. It didn't have at least some period of sunshine.
Yeah,
which I think was part of the weirdness of it. Instead of it being like a consistently, okay, it's going to rain for a couple days straight, and it's gray, but it was gray, and then the sun comes out, and then in proper Knoxville style, it's been raining, and now the sun's out, and now you're walking in a sauna to take the dog out or whatever, and so it's just extra hot, and so my water intake has increased to keep that to replace all the sweat I've been doing.
That's right. Hydrate, everybody.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing though. There's nothing I like to do more now that I'm old and don't get out and do as much stuff as I used to do, is sitting on my front porch, which is covered, and watching it rain. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, that is a really nice experience.
We've got a little thing in the yard that it's got a little, not tin roof, it's like the plastic corrugated roofing stuff, but it's very enjoyable to sit in there when it's just a good solid rain, and that noise is wonderful, and it's very relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
It's falling asleep in the hammock. Good times.
Absolutely. Well, we didn't get a chance, even though it did rain quite a bit lately. Didn't get a chance to relax too much. We did have a short week because of Memorial Day, but there were things that happened. A couple things with the Knoxville Police Department. At the end of the week, they had a professionalism assessment done on how officers interact with the public, and that came out this week or last week. And also the Real-Time Information Center, the video center of basically a surveillance hub throughout the city, opened on a limited basis. It's already open, so we'll talk about that a little bit. City Council gave second and final reading approval to the budget and to a smoking ban in age-restricted venues. Although there was a little surprise in the vote on that one. And then, but the big news of the week, I think is pretty pretty obviously that Knox County Schools Superintendent John Ryswick announced that Roots, the Alex Haley's his seminal work will be returned to Knox County School library shelves, and of course it had been banned for being graphic, shall we say? But it was interesting, and there was a lot of backlash to that ban, both locally and nationally, with the Haley family and members of the Roots miniseries cast weighing in on it. Jesse, you were primarily the one following all this. What do you make of the sudden turnaround?
Well, it was really interesting. I mean, obviously, Ryswick's decision was very much in response to the pushback that the school system and school officials received once it became public that Roots was among the books that had been removed. And remember, this is under the Age Appropriate Materials Act, which is a state law passed in 2022 and then amended in 2024. And it creates this set of categories which, if any book or any kind of material in a school library crosses any of these or contains any of these categories, then that book, the state has decreed, is not appropriate for any student at any grade level, K through 12. And Knox County has been working its way through its library collections over the last 2 years and had already removed more than 100 books before the most recent batch, which included Roots. And, we've reported on that. Other people have reported on that, but none of those other books generated the kind of backlash that Roots did. And as we talked about the other week, I think a certain amount of that had to do with Alex Haley's personal connections to Knoxville in East Tennessee. He owned a farm here in his later years. He was like a known local figure. There's a lot of people in Knoxville who at various points had interactions with Haley or saw him speak and so forth. And of course, we have a big statue of him at Haley Heritage Square there in East Knoxville. And so it felt especially egregious maybe to people for the book to be removed here. The interesting thing about Ryswick's decision is that it didn't, the way the state law is written, it says that districts have to review their collections and make sure that they don't contain any of these forbidden categories, which are depictions or descriptions of sexual activity or nudity, excess violence, and sadomasochistic abuse. And it was the sadomasochistic abuse category that they have an internal review committee at the district that will look at any book that's submitted, whether it comes from a school librarian or a parent or student or other school employee. Those are the people who can sort of bring challenges under this law. And remember, when this committee looks at any of these works, they're not looking at the work as a whole, because the law explicitly says you can't look at the work as a whole. It basically says if there's any page, any paragraph in a work that contains any of these elements, it just has to be removed, period. The law does not have any mechanism or state any mechanism for appealing or reinstating books once that kind of decision has been made. It also doesn't say that you can't. Like, there's nothing in the law that says once a book's removed, nobody is ever allowed to put it back on the shelf. But Knox County, in setting up its policies and processes around this, did not include any kind of, review or reconsideration process. And so Ryswick just kind of made the decision himself in the absence of a more structured way to do this. And he put out a statement about it. He said that he had consulted with the Knox County Law Department. He had talked to outside legal experts to kind of look at the law and look at the passage that had been flagged, which the passage is a description of a rape of an enslaved woman by a slave owner. And, Ryswick said that he felt like there was enough gray area in the way the law is written, the specific passage that the committee looked at, for him to just kind of say, it's kind of a gray area, and let's err on the side of, as he said, I want to err on the side of access. And so they put it back on the shelf. And it was interesting because there had already been, by that point, a couple of school board members who had said they were going to bring resolutions or other ways of talking about this to their meeting this coming week. And initially it was a couple of the Democratic members of the school board, Catherine Bike and Ann Templeton, who said they were going to do that. But then earlier in the day, this was last Tuesday that Ryswick made this announcement. Earlier that day, school board member Betsy Henderson, who's one of the conservative Republicans on the board and is also, of course, the Republican candidate for county mayor this year, she put out a statement saying that she thought, while she supports the Age Appropriate Materials Act, she's actually been one of the bigger supporters on the school board of removing materials that she thinks are inappropriate. But she thought that the law was not written to apply to books like Roots, and that Roots should be on school shelves, and that she also was going to bring some kind of resolution to return Roots to the shelves. Senator Lamar Alexander, former senator, Republican Lamar Alexander, had also come out and said he thought it was a mistake. So there was some bipartisan pushback against this removal. And so Ryswick, is politically astute, among other things, and could kind of see where all this conversation was going. And also, the school system was getting inundated with calls and emails, both people locally and nationally. As you said, Scott, there were statements from members of Haley's family, who were strongly objecting to this removal. And then Leslie Uggams and LeVar Burton, who were both in the cast of the extremely popular and well-regarded TV miniseries Made of Roots in 1977, they came out and made strong statements about, saying that it was absurd that this book had been removed. So it was politically an easy call, I think, for Ryswick. I think the harder part was the legal side of it. Like, well, we do have this state law, and we do have a review committee that has said this violates the state law. So what is my mechanism here for reversing this? And he, like I said, he just kind of said, well, we're just going to put it back. I think the big questions are, well, what happens next? Because, and we'll talk later in the episode about the upcoming school board meetings, but this is still going to be a subject of ongoing discussion in the school board. There may be some board members who kind of feel like, well, we resolved the Roots issue, and that's kind of the one that blew up, so we can just kind of move on with life as normal. Ryswick said that there will be a presentation about how the district is applying the Age Appropriate Materials Act. And so there's going to be more we'll probably be talking about this again in next week's episode, yes, because there's going to be more discussion of this in the coming week. But for now, the result is that Roots, at least, is back on the shelves. There are 123 other books that have been removed by the school district under this law that are still banned, but Roots is not one of them.
Yeah, next week is going to be more of the same. So
yeah, we'll go into it, and we'll have more to talk about there.
All right. Well, also on Tuesday, City Council met, and they had a couple of big items on their agenda. One was the city budget, and it was the second reading of the budgets, a almost $500 million budget. There's not a lot of big new initiatives, just a little bit more money here and there for things. The fire department got more money. The police department got more officers approved. They're still spending $8 million a year on affordable housing. They're going to add some resources to Chilhowie Park, those kinds of things. They're really, the questions, the only questions that came up came primarily from Councilwoman Amelia Parker, who wanted to kind of get a sense of how the city uses its what's called the unassigned fund balance, and that's basically money that's not budgeted, that's not technically part of the mandated reserves, and so it's
right. They keep a certain percent of the budget as a designated fund balance, which is, the rainy day fund or the emergency, for when the tornado hits or whatever. And then there's money that accumulates on top of that they can kind of do whatever they want with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And they just a little over $30 million now, and they're going to use $6 million in this budget. But yeah, it's kind of just money that's not designated for anything, but isn't doesn't necessarily have to be part of the reserve. So they like to keep that number pretty high, because things happen during the year that if they need to spend money during the year, they can use that money to do that, and so they like to keep that fairly high, but it's not really a savings account. It's just when if you keep your checking account, if you routinely keep a couple $1,000s more than you spend every month in your checking account, that's what this is. This is that extra money. So, but anyway, the other than that, there's really not much that council members objected to. Of course, she voted against it. There were a couple of public forum speakers who spoke out against it. Vivian Scheib, who's running for county commission, has been she advocated for more money for general government public service employees. They're getting a raise. All city employees are getting raises, but
there's an ordinance that they have to get at least 2.5%.
But no one has bothered to rescind that ordinance. So yeah, it's a 2.5% raise. That every city employee gets. Police and firefighters get more because of the salary scales that went into effect a couple of years ago. So, but overall, it's not a spectacular budget. It's not a bad. I mean, it's not. There's no. There's nothing dire.
Right. They're not making big cuts or anything.
Yeah. So, it's they characterize it as a thin budget, but it's not really thin. It's they're funding everything that they have traditionally funded, and don't have to pay as much on debt service as they have in the past, because they made a big lump sum payment on the convention center debt last year. So anyway, so that went through. The budget is set. There's no property tax increase. So really, there's other than the kind of process questions, there was no real objection to the budget at all. So, the council also passed on second reading the smoking ban in age appropriate or age restricted bars and venues.
Yeah, and that was the thing everybody came to the meeting for and spoke about, and that consumed much more of the time. It's always interesting when you have a city budget of $500 million that almost nobody shows up to say much about, and then you have this ban that affects maybe 14 or 15 establishments in the whole city, and this is the one that got everybody fired up.
Yeah, it was, and I think that probably took sponsors, and primary sponsor was Debbie Helsley, by surprise a little bit, because there was a lot of pushback on it, and the rationale for instituting the ban. Now, smoking is banned almost everywhere indoors in public spaces in Knoxville.
In all of Tennessee.
All of Tennessee. This is an exemption the state legislature made so that if you run a bar and you do not allow anyone under the age of 21 to even enter the bar. You've got to be 21 to drink, but if you just keep anyone from who's 21 or under 21 out of the bar, you could allow smoking. And a handful of bars in Knoxville did so and have done so for, it's been a decade or 2 decades.
Almost. Yeah, almost 20 years.
And so, and then this proposal came out 2 weeks ago, and there was a lot of pushback from owners and patrons of these establishments because it's kind of one of those things where that these are the only places you can go indoors and smoke, and so.
I just want to add a little bit here because it's also you're not allowed to smoke in city parks outside by rule. I just think one of the other things that I was that a lot of people miss in talking about, I think, is that it's not just this few places that were left. There are a lot of places that traditionally people were used to being able to smoke that they can't smoke it anymore too, left over from different ordinances and stuff like that too. Just throwing another one on the pile. So apologize as you were. This has been. I'll just I've ended up on a couple of different media outlets talking about this as a owner of a bar that is non-smoking anyway. And I always try to preface it. I prefer you talk to me not as a bar owner, but as a person who's just interested in policy and government and how it is interacting with the people.
Seth Barber, local wonk.
But yes, well, I heard the word 1,000 times, and then I finally learned it when I learned that it applied to me. And I am absolutely, I am a policy wonk and stuff like this because I think it's interesting. These are one of those things that. It didn't fall through under the radar. It still got a lot of attention, but still happened anyway. Like there's enough stuff in the wonk space where it's like nobody's paying attention to this over here. Like everybody was paying attention to this one, and everybody spoke out about this one, and it didn't seem to matter. And I think that's one of those. That's what makes me a wonk. I find that very interesting and very fun to pay attention to. And it's and just in a little bit of ego part of it, it's nice to be the most informed person in the room when you're talking to people about it, and they all look to you for answers. Like the number of phone calls I got from a bunch of different people.
Sure.
Like, what's going on with this? What do you know about this? Like people reaching out to me. It's somewhat satisfying. But I think it's an overreach.
All of
thing.
your attention to local government is paying off.
Right, finally, years and years of just struggle and pain but yeah, I think it's one of those. I think a lot of people see it as an unnecessary overreach. There's no point. You're not protecting anybody that doesn't have a choice to be putting themselves in this situation. So who are we trying to save or protect? What is the point of this? And I think that's the general one that a lot of people are struggling with most, myself included. Like it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense on who is like if we're going to have an entity that is protecting people, okay. That's not a bad thing, but this one isn't protecting anybody. It's not changing anything.
Yeah, well, one of the things that the proponents of the ban, talked about as well. We're protecting employees. This will protect employees, and then they're also saying that and anybody who comes into the bar to service the bar, for whatever, and also musicians who perform at the bar. Well, most of these places don't actually have musicians who perform there, but some do. And but the opponents, pointed out, well, hey, these employees know.
Right.
That it's not a secret that these are smoking bars.
And one of the things that I've discovered in talking about it, it's like, when I grew up bartending, because that was one of my first full-time job kind of deals or whatever, is it wasn't a choice back then. Every restaurant and bar did allow smoking, at least in the bar section of the restaurant or whatever. And so I didn't have a choice when I was 22 trying to make a living behind a bar. I do have a choice now. Not because I'm older, but just because of the way the world works. I think I need to I need to look it up, and I apologize. I've made this reference a bunch of times. The news is reporting, and I think you guys agreed with it, there's about 15 bars in the city of Knoxville that are allowing smoking currently. I'm guessing that we're in the 200s to 300s of total bars in the city of Knoxville. If you want to bartend for a career, you have 285 choices or so that don't allow smoking to go try to get a job at. These 15 that are left over, it's not an obligation anymore. That's just anyway, sorry. I don't mean to.
Well, and a lot of the ones that
on
exist are relatively small. I mean, the Preservation Pub downtown is pretty big. Urban Bar in the Old City is pretty big. But a lot of the places that allow smoking are, kind of small beer joints.
Tiny holes in the wall.
Yeah, and so like even the number of staff that they have beyond the owners is pretty low.
Yeah, and they're all locally owned businesses.
Yeah.
These aren't, the chains, the chain restaurants that serve alcohol are, you can't smoke in them. And so it's not, it's kind of this, these are small businesses. I mean, a couple of the owners who own multiple businesses, but but primarily these are small locally owned businesses. And to Seth's point, one of the arguments made was, employees can, have plenty of other options if they, and if they don't want to be exposed to smoke while they work. Patrons obviously have options. I mean, we've got two bars downtown that allow smoking, and out of dozens of bars. I mean,
you'd have to count up how many places downtown you can go to get a beer or a cocktail. It's a lot.
Well, and one of them is on Market Square. It's Preservation Pub, owned by Scott and Bernadette West. The Wests have several other restaurants and bars on Market Square, and if you don't want to expose yourself to smoke in Preservation Pub, you can go next door and be smoke free. You can go upstairs on the roof and be smoke free too. So anyway, one kind of interesting thing there was that on first reading, the vote was 7-2 to institute the complete ban, and the only two council members who voted against it were Matthew DeBartoleben and Amelia Parker. Then on last Tuesday, second reading, Denzel Grant, who represents the 6th District, switched his vote from...
Which includes downtown, the 6th District.
Does include downtown. Switched his vote from a no to a yes. He not only does...
Or from a yes to a no, you mean?
I'm sorry, from a yes to a no. And not only does his district include downtown, his district is home to the majority of these 15 establishments we're talking about. Because it goes from, his district goes from East Knoxville to all the way over to Marble City. It's a big, it's a long, very long district, and contains a lot of commercial areas. Anyway, the excuse me, he changed his vote, and one of the reasons he changed his vote, that he said, was that basically city council was talking out both sides of its mouth. They were instituting this ban on smoking indoors, which forces people to go outdoors to smoke if they want to. And he said at the same time, we're instituting these outdoor drinking areas, one of which is Market Square, and he said we're making people go, we're allowing people to go outside and drink, and forcing people, anybody to be exposed to smoke outside, in Market Square. So,
and Market Square is one of the big, centers of activity downtown. When you talk about making downtown family friendly, Market Square draws a lot of families for the farmers market, for the fountains that are there, and so forth. And Grant was kind of making the point that we're actually going to be exposing, people who are not electing to be around alcohol or cigarettes, and you're going to be exposing them to both on Market Square.
Yeah, and now that logic did not persuade anyone else to change their vote. They needed 3 people to change their vote, and they only got 1. So, the ban will go into effect. It will go into effect January 1st. They decided to do this on first reading, give businesses until January 1st to make any changes that they wanted to make, anything they wanted to do needed to do to actually go through with the ban. So on January 1st, the ban goes into effect. Kind of wondered if there's going to be if any of the bars is going to have a ceremonial last cigarette on New Year's Eve at midnight, where there'll be a ball drop at World's Fair Park, but there could be a butt snuffing in one of these bars.
The final butt.
So if any bar owners out there are going to do that, let us know. But anyway, and we were talking about these outdoor
the Dora drinking zones.
Dora drinking zones, yes, the outdoor alcohol drinking zones.
Which does make the kid-friendly part even funnier that they titled that.
It's called Dora. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the council also approved the Dora parameters for the stadium. So that's an area. If you excuse me, if you patronize any of the businesses, and this is kind of weird, outside the stadium, but I mean the stadium has some exterior facing businesses,
right?
And one of those, or any of the ones in the Delaney building, is going to have several. Anyway, you can, and they participate in this program. You can buy alcohol in those establishments, put them in special cup, and go out to the plazas, the public plazas outside. There are 4 of them outside the stadium, essentially at each corner. You can go and drink those outdoors there. You can't go to the rest of the old city, but you can do it there. And one of the interesting exemptions is you can't buy anything in the stadium and carry it out to
right. And you can't smoke in the stadium, right? I believe. Right. And so what that means is you cannot, like, let's say you've got your beer in the stadium and you want to step outside for a cigarette. You cannot carry your beer outside the stadium.
You got to choose.
Right, exactly. But you can go buy a drink at one of the places outside the stadium,
yes,
and stand out on the plaza. And I assume you can smoke out there on the plaza. I'm not actually even sure about that. It's public space.
As far as I know, you can.
Yeah.
But, I have seen people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, that kind of defeats the purpose. You're going to the game. You want to watch the game.
Yeah.
And enjoy a beverage. And if you smoke, enjoy a smoke. Well, you can't do both. So why go to the game if you're going to just leave and spend half an inning or more outside not watching the game? I don't know. Anyway, that passed. And one of the things that came up in this, it was kind of interesting. They did not vote on establishing a Dora for Market Square. They did not have to. Apparently, the state law that provides for these areas, some places the city can just do it. They didn't even need to get city council approval for the one in Market Square, which did not sit well with Charles Thomas and a couple of others. But they did not understand why they and would have voted for. He voted for the one at the stadium, but the stadium is under a different law. It's the same thing, but a different law, and it's a more of a tourist thing than just a public space matter. So both of those Doras will be available, open up, and you'll be able to drink outside in these situations sometime this summer, be probably mid-June. So,
and are they going to do, like on Market Square, it's open at both ends, and obviously you won't be able to carry, even in these designated cups, you won't be able to carry alcohol off of the square. In times past when they've had events on Market Square where they sold beer They set up barriers and had people kind of checking people as they came and went. That doesn't seem like something you can probably do on a full-time basis on Market Square. So did they talk at all about how that's going to be policed? Is anybody going to be watching if people walk off of Market Square carrying one of these cups?
Well, Chief Paul Noel, police chief, talked about it, said really wouldn't change how they, he was talking specifically about the stadium. I did not discuss Market Square. He said it's not going to change how they patrol those areas. They've always enforced open container laws. It's just that the officers, when there is an event at the stadium is when this will be activated. And then, of course, they have officers down there during the ball game. So they're there to keep you from wandering up toward Jackson Central with your cup. The Market Square, there's usually police presence up there.
It's where the horses are.
And so
right, and these specially marked cups, I'm sure, will be recognizable from a distance, so they'll be able to see if somebody's carrying one walking up Gay Street or whatever.
Yeah. And an important little add-on to it is this: is in these zones you can't. There's no BYOB here. You can't bring in your.
You cannot bring. You can't bring a can of beer onto Market Square and open it and stand there and drink it. You have to go and buy a drink at one of the local places that's participating, and they'll give it to you in this special cup that you can take outdoors. Right. Then
I just think that's one of those that I would think a lot of people would think, okay, cool, I could just go and.
Right. This is not just suspending open container rules in these designated areas. You still have to get them from approved places and have it be in an approved cup.
Yeah. And
probably the local businesses want it that way, because businesses on Market Square, people who are selling alcohol on Market Square do not want people just bringing their own bottle of wine to come hang out on the square.
Yeah, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Right. They want them to buy it from them, and then they can go outside and enjoy it.
So anyway, that will go into effect, as I said, in the middle of June, and we'll see how people respond to that. I don't know. I'm sure that there are many occasions where they will, especially if there's an event going on in the square or something like that. But
well, for example, they have free concerts on Market Square during the summer, and right now, if you want to come to like a jazz show on the square and enjoy a beer, you have to sit on the patio of one of the places on the square. Now you'll be able to go in, get a beer, and come back and sit in your lawn chair or whatever and enjoy the show.
Yeah, and to Grant's point, you can go get a beer, come out, and watch your kid play in the fountains while you smoke. And
right.
while you smoke and expose all the kiddies to. Anyway, speaking of KPD, a couple of things that came into kind of toward the end of the week. The Real-Time Information Center is finally up and running. The Real-Time Information Center, we've talked about it before, but it's been a while. It is what it is it's a nerve center where they have lots of video screens set up, and there's a network of cameras throughout the city that are plugged into that network, and KPD personnel can use those if as needed to look to see what's going on in the city, and it's especially valuable according to KPD in investigations when there's a crime committed, someone flees the scene. They can look at the various cameras, if they have cameras in that area, and see if they can, see their getaway vehicle or whatever, and try to patch together things that way. The KPD, law enforcement agencies do this all the time anyway. One of the things they do is they go to businesses and try to get surveillance videos.
Or these days to people's home residences if they have ring cameras and so forth.
And so one of the things that makes it different is there are city-owned cameras. There are 10 that the KPD is using. There are other public cameras that are plugged into the system as well. Now one of the things that they do is a little bit. I mean, they're not supposedly not going to use this to routinely keep areas under surveillance, because they don't have personnel to do that, and too many things are going on in too many places to make that an effective way to.
Right. It's mostly so they can come back and say, "Show me this camera on Chapman Highway yesterday at 3 p.m." or whatever. Right.
And then an exception to that is when there are major events. If there's going to be a major event, Market Square, for example, or World's Fair Park, if they've got cameras over there, then they might use those to kind of monitor the crowd and all. But anyway, it's lots of cities have these real-time information centers. As I said, one thing that's interesting is it's only going to be open 5 days a week at first. They have a sergeant and a couple of we're all civilians, but there are a couple of non-sworn KPD employees who monitor the monitors. They'll be sitting there doing that. It's kind of interesting. They don't need you don't need to be a sworn police officer to watch the video, and they're all plugged into the 911 center as well. In fact, that's how they hear about things. If there's you mentioned Chapman Highway. Let's say there's a robbery at a business on Chapman Highway. The 911 call comes in, goes to the real-time crime center. They activate not activate the cameras, but they switch the monitors over to cameras that feed from the Chapman Highway area to try to identify maybe the getaway vehicle or whatever. May even be able to get the crime itself on camera, depending on where it is and what it is. And then they talk to the officers in the field and all. So it's that's kind of what it's designed for. The one thing that they also are simultaneously launching a program called Connect Knoxville. And what that does is it gives mostly businesses, but also anyone who wants to participate, who can, the opportunity to help out in this thing. If you want, it's a voluntary thing. They do two different ways to do it. One of them is you can just register your camera. If you own a business and you have a surveillance camera, you can register it with the city. That way, and that way they already have your contact information and all. So if there is this robbery that occurred on Chapman Highway, the mythical robbery that occurs on Chapman Highway, say there's the person who owns the business next door has registered, they can go ahead and call him or her and get permission to review their footage. They're not plugged into the system. They're just available if need be. And one of the things that does is, of course, it reduces the amount of time it takes to contact these people, because a lot of times, officers will go to a business, so we want to review your video, and the clerk of the business says, no, you can't until I hear from my boss. So, well, can you call your boss? Well, my boss is in Bermuda or whatever. It can delay things, and so this way they already have the information, can contact the business owner or contact person for the business immediately and get it as soon as they can. The other is to integrate your camera into the system, and what that is you have the proper camera, and you need to use you have to purchase some special device to plug into the system. But your camera can be used just like the city's cameras are, and so if the that Chapman Highway robbery occurs and the person who owns the business next door has plugged into the system, then that's already in there. They're already looking at that video. So those are two different ways to look into it. It's and one thing they're trying to, I will say that they are trying to be transparent to a certain degree. They do have, if you are interested, the Real Time Crime Center has a website where you can go and see where the cameras are. And now they're also
plan your crimes accordingly.
Plan your crimes, yes. And one thing about these cameras is they are, and I've seen them, they are well marked as cameras. However, they're usually like on top of power poles.
Right. You might not see them if you're not looking for them.
Excuse me. And also, you may see them, but you might not be able to. I can't read the markings. Mm-hmm. You'd have to have a binoculars to read the markings because it's really high up. But anyway, that has gone into effect.
And of course, these things always raise concerns about invasion of privacy. And, these are mostly cameras aimed at public spaces where there is not actually a legal expectation of privacy. But there are still just a lot of people who don't really like the idea of the government, Big Brother, potentially watching whatever you may be doing when you're out and about. This is just sort of the reality that we all inhabit now, where you are more likely to be on a camera wherever you are than not. And everybody just kind of has to keep that in mind. It is funny. I was talking to a friend the other week about, you go back just a few generations in this country, like back to when we were kids, let's say, even, in the latter half of the 20th century, it was still relatively easy in this country for somebody to disappear, whether you're fleeing something criminal or something in your personal life or whatever, you just get in your car, you take off in the middle of the night, you go a couple states over, get a new job, maybe with a new name even, who knows? Yeah. And it was hard for people to find you, whether it was family members or law enforcement or whatever. It used to be not all that difficult for people who just wanted to get away. And boy, has that changed.
Oh, yeah, sure has. You can't. Footprints are everywhere.
Yeah.
And, so
I know Chief listens to the podcast, so I'm just going to stay over here and stay quiet. Keep my mouth shut. I need to. I ought not make a reason for them to watch me cruise around town, take care of my own business.
That's right.
Wow. Well, Seth, you're like confessing here almost. So
no, just my general paranoia. I curse my parents on the regular for making me a rule follower, and it really upsets me that my innate need to follow the rules, whether I agree with them or not. So, no confession to crime. Just want to keep it. I don't need to be on a radar. That's all.
Well, just about anywhere you go, you'll be on the radar. So it's, as it were. So, one other bit on KPD that came out on Thursday was they had the National Policing Institute, which is a nonprofit research group, conduct an assessment of the officers' interactions with the public, and they looked at NPI looked at body cam video. They didn't go to there aren't any Yelp reviews for KPD, and they didn't go to the reports of interactions with people. They looked at the actual body cam footage, about 7,000 hours. Well, of course, there's plenty more. There's a lot more than that, but they looked at 7,000 hours from 2025, and what they did is they kind of looked at each incident and measured the professionalism of their officer interactions, and they also looked at whether they were using trust building behaviors, and also how the people from the community cooperated with them, and how that worked. And one of the things, and how this was, I think, pretty surprising to me, was that 93% of the interactions were considered positive. That they, just interacted and everybody cooperated, and the officers didn't have to do anything special. The community members cooperated, whatever. In 97% of the incidents said that officers listened and communicated effectively with people in the community. That's not always been the case.
Yeah, for sure. And to the degree that there are complaints about police conduct these days, which of course they put out regular reports on that too, things that come to the Civilian Review Committee. It is professionalism and rudeness are the most common complaints when people do have complaints. It's not necessarily about brutality or use of force. It's just that people report that, cops were unpleasant to them.
Well, yeah. And you sit there and go, okay, 93% were positive according to this review. Well, that means 7% weren't.
And they have a lot of interactions, and so 7% is still going to be a lot of incidents.
Okay, I can't do math in my head and talk at the same time, but 7% of 7,000 is whatever that is. In
about 10% of 7,000 would be 700. So
we've got
600 and some.
Yeah, 600 or so instances where things did not go so well, and they also talked about the types of calls that do that. One of the things that they said KPD can do a lot better job of is when they get to the scene and the party's already argumentative, and de-escalating from there. Although they said, generally speaking, their de-escalation was one of the big positives. But they do have de-escalation skills. They need to build on those and work on those more. But it's just kind of an interesting third-party review of those just routine interactions that police have, the types that interactions that most of us have with KPD. And
actually 7% would be 490. I just got around to doing the math.
I figured you would, so I'm glad you did.
Sorry, I'm over here with the computer and the calculator. I could have done it for us, but I was distracted.
I can multiply 70 by 7.
But anyway, these one of the things that, of course, they also mentioned, one of the things they did is they looked at these interactions. You might think, well, yeah, there are parts of town where, every police interaction is pretty, hey, how you doing? Not much of anything. But they looked at all three of the patrol areas of the city, central, east, and west, basically is how they have it broken down. And they looked at all those. And, I think that they're not, they didn't sugarcoat it a lot. They said, that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and Noel acknowledged that we still need to do more work, but I think it does. Whatever the results show, and whatever you think of the results, doing something this, I think, like this, I think shows that there is a willingness at KPD to have outsiders take a look at what they do, make recommendations about what to do, and do that in with the idea of making the police force more professional.
And this was one of the promises of the body cams when those went into effect. I mean, sort of the most important case for having body cams is when something goes really wrong, when there's a shooting incident and there needs to be an investigation, and so you have that kind of firsthand footage. But I think part of the promise of it always was that, well, officers who are wearing the body cams know that everything they say is being recorded, and that it would just that by itself would have some impact on how they think about and conduct their interactions with people. And, we can't prove whether or not that's true, but it could be a factor in that number being, as relatively good as it is.
Yeah. And, the one thing that Noel has stressed is, continuing improvement. And, this is a way to look and say, this is where we are. This is where we need to improve and do that. He was very big. I talked to him about another story that we haven't run yet about. He's real big on processes, getting processes in place, and you get the right processes in place, then and people are following said processes. Then the improvements come with that. If you want to, whatever you want to do. It talked about a little bit of that kind of the Nick Saban thing in Alabama with trusting the process. Well, you put the process in place, follow that. You don't have to look at the scoreboard because you know you're going to win. So, anyway, that is about all that we've got time for our coverage from last week. It was a short week, so there wasn't quite as much going on. And as Jesse said, there's a little bit of torpor here following the holiday. But
today's episode is brought to you by torpor.
Ask your doctor if torpor is right for you.
Anyway, if that's the kind of since if you listen to us this long, these are kinds of stories that you like to follow. You can go to CompassKnox.com, subscribe there, read these. We got a story a week or a story a day on the website. Several shorter stories on our daily newsletter. Once again, it's CompassKnox.com. This coming week, it's going to be a little busy. We talked a lot about city stuff in the first part of the episode from last week. This week is going to be almost all county stuff that we know of. The county commission is holding their public budget hearing at 5 p.m. Monday at the main assembly room of the city county building. They will be, Mayor Glenn Jacobs is present his budget. There is no property tax increase in it. Shocked, I know, everyone is about that. But they're going to be hearing from the public and having discussions about that budget. Also at 5:00 on Monday afternoon, the school board is holding a work session, and that is where they are going to. Superintendent Ryswick is going to be talking about that, how the school system is complying with state law on materials in their the age appropriate materials, and that will be he's going to be talking about what the school system intends to do moving forward and how they're going to assess books, as you mentioned earlier, Jesse. Reconciling that with the state law, thinks it's ambiguous enough. We'll see what he says about that on Monday. Then on Thursday, the school board is meeting in their actual voting meeting at 5:00, and both of these are in the Summer Place boardroom downtown Knoxville. It is going to be another roots-related meeting. One of the things is, Jesse, you mentioned earlier about the things that the school board members have proposed. And Templeton is proposing a change in how they review books, and to put them in context, put the passages in context with the.
Well, she's proposing putting the school board on record as asking for changes in the state law that would allow them to do that, because the school board cannot by themselves obviously just say, well, we're gonna disregard this law and just do it this way. Well,
technically they already have. Anyway, and to do the grade scale thing where treat high schoolers differently than elementary school students.
What? Treat 17-year-olds different from 5-year-olds?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That is crazy. Catherine Bike has just written a letter saying we need to do something on this. She really hasn't proposed yet any kind of action, although it's possible that there could be action out of it. And Henderson basically is urging Roswick to do what Roswick has already done, which is restore routes to the libraries. So don't know what Roswick will tell them on Monday will affect what they end up voting. All three of these may go away, depending on what he says as being unnecessary. Although, I'm sure that that they may want to go on the record anyway. But anyway, that'll be on Thursday. So between County Commission and School Board, we should have a lot of government's kind of stuff to cover, and there will be other things that happen as well. That is the nature of news. So that's all we got.
The other thing that happens this week, June starts. We're already in June.
We are in June. It's insane. This year has flown by faster than any before it that I can think of.
Torpor. I'm just going to say it just randomly now. Torpor.
Well, we need the torpor to slow things down.
That's right.
That's what I'm waiting on.
Anyway, so
the Pee Wee's Playhouse episode is this week. Torpor. For our older listeners out there, I guess.
Yeah, the
R.I.P. Pee Wee Herman.
Absolutely. So anyway, that's it for this week. Seth, Lord Seth Barber, thank you for all of your work and for chiming in when appropriate, and sometimes when it's not appropriate, but it's okay. I also want to thank Will Wright for providing music for us. Jesse, guess we'll be back next week with another episode of Compass Points.
That's right.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.